Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A very warm greetings to each and every one of you. Welcome to DBA Scholar Leaders webinar, Strategic Foresight in an Age of Disruption. I'm Dr. Derek Chung, the chairman of the PolyU DBA Alumni Associate Limited, DBAAA. It is my pleasure to be a moderator for this webinar. On behalf of the organizer, Business School of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University and PolyU DBAAA, we extend our appreciation for your presence today. All of us are experiencing an age of disruption, triggered by a number of factors, geopolitical conflicts, COVID, etc. In response to such challenges, some sharing from bridging the business and academics in the areas of knowledge application, exchange, and transfer may contribute a better preparation. Therefore, we plan to have a series of DBA Scholar Leaders webinar under the theme of Strategic Foresight in an Age of Disruption. Today's event is the first round, namely Business Strategies in Post-COVID Disruption. And we will have 2 rounds more in July. The upcoming webinars in July, they are latest development of supply chain and renminbi internationalization and Hong Kong's role. Without further ado, let us start our today's event by welcoming our program director, Professor Wilson Tong, to deliver his opening remarks. Please welcome Professor Wilson Tong.
Thank you, Derek. I'm Wilson Tong, the director of PolyU Dba Program. I'm very excited on this event, and I thank the DBAA Alumni Association for launching this webinar series. And I would like to thank them also for having me here. This webinar series, as Derek mentioned about, is a series, right? So in this occasion, I would like to send my gratitude and congratulations for this event. Let me say a little bit about our DBA program, right? So DBA program, as said, we train scholar leaders. And this DBA program, I would like to highlight 5 points. So our PolyU DBA program is the first in the region, and we have over 25 years. We are actually celebrating our 25th anniversary. And our program aims to provide global perspective and interdisciplinary approach so that our students, typically are senior executives in the business world, to increase their perspective. Especially nowadays, we face a lot of challenges globally and locally. Right? And the nice thing about our program is we have another sister program, which called Doctor of Management, joined with Renmin University, Beijing, China. It is a separate program, but in terms of alumni association, they are closely connected, so that if you join our DBA program, you naturally connected with our Doctor of Management program with their alumni, who again, also top executive and businessmen in China. And then our program provides academic rigor as well as practical applications, so that we bring academic knowledge into the practical situation. And this webinar series is exactly thanks to DBA Alumni Association, again, for structuring this webinar in a way that always we have one professor from PolyU Faculty of Business, and then a alumni of our alumnus of our DBA graduate to share their views, both from the academic side as well as on the practical side. Right? And then if you join a program and then naturally not just connecting with China, but also become part of an elite network that revealed by our distinguished speakers. So maybe next slide, you will have more. You can get more information from the QR code to understand more about our Dba program. As a piece of information that this year we introduced a new stream, which is a 2-year full-time stream. I don't know whether it's relevant to you or not, but because our program wants to go increasingly international, and then in order to attract international applicants, we have this 2-year full-time stream, mostly welcomed by international applicants coming all over the world to come to Hong Kong to join our PolyU program in a more effective and efficient way. Without further ado, let me introduce the 2 speakers of today's webinar. One is Professor Flora Gu, who is the Associate Professor and Associate Head of the Department of Management Marketing. She would talk about her most current cutting-edge research and to shed light on the topic today. Another speaker is our distinguished alumnus, Dr. Danny Po, who is the International and M&A Service Partner of Deloitte. And he will share his specialty topic of M&A strategy in this particular era. So let me congratulate and ensure the success of today's webinar. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Flora Gu for her insightful comment on her academic research. Please, Flora.
Thank you, Professor Tom, for the nice introduction. It's my honor and a pleasure to be here today on this webinar. Let me share my screen first. Okay. So this is just one example of research that we do that combines academic rigor and industry significance. I think many of our alumni, DBA alumni or existing DBA students, they discuss research interest with me, and they care both about, does it matter? Okay, does it matter in the real world? Does it matter to managers of the firms? And also at the same time, does it have significant contributions to the theory, to the literature of marketing? Being a marketing instructor for DBA and the management programs for a number of years, I've encountered and conducted a number of research that tries to combine the interest from both field, academic field and industry field. And today, the topic is influencer marketing effectiveness. That is a stream that I've been doing in the recent few years. Okay, so I'm Flora, and I'm Professor Tong has mentioned, I'm Associate Professor in Marketing and also Associate Head of the Department of Management Marketing, and I teach Strategic Marketing for DBA program, and I also teach Service Marketing program, Service Marketing for DBA and the Management program. So I know some of the names and the faces in this webinar, and I also welcome prospective DBA students to our program. So what about online influencers? I think we're not, we're very familiar with, I should say, as an ordinary consumer, right? And also as a business leader in different organizations, even B2B organizations. I talk with some managers in B2B firms, they also utilize online influencers. So who are they? This is a formal definition we provide in one of our recently published papers. We define them as individuals and sometimes groups of individuals, right, as a team, or even virtual avatars who have built a sizable network of followers on social media. Can be like Twitter, Facebook, in China, TikTok, Douyin, Weibo, many such social media platforms, and they are content creators, and they accumulate followers by actively sharing content and also interacting with them. So we have seen the power of the online influencers in many cases. That's why I think firms have increasingly been aware of its significance and have been utilizing it, trying to make improve firm performance. So it involves firms selecting and incentivizing. Okay, so among the numerous influencers, how to select, this is a very important topic that academics also care about, selecting and incentivizing them to engage their followers in an attempt to promote the firm's offering. So at the end of the day, it's still commercial purpose, but it is considered more authentic because it uses the influencer's own voices. Okay, and also later, as I mentioned, it will utilize the accumulated trust and the social capital that the influencer has built within his or her followers. So the influencers, they weave brand endorsements into their personal stories and posts, so the content appears more authentic to consumers, so the persuasive power is stronger in a way. So because of the pandemic and the other obstacles, we see some decline of marketing expenses by some firms. However, if we look at domain of online influencers, influencer marketing, actually the recent industry report told us nearly 75% of marketers intend to dedicate resources to influencer marketing, with the related spending expected to reach $16.4 billion in 2022. So as the graph shows, actually the spending on influencer marketing and a particular marketing strategy has been increasing over the past almost a decade. So this is one of our papers that uses it's based on a lot of interviews. Actually, it's a first conceptual theoretical paper about influencer marketing. We interviewed dozens of practitioners in mainland, in Hong Kong. They could be brand managers, they could be advertising agencies, they could be influencers themselves. And based on the rich story they have told me, we theorize influencer marketing as a crowdsourcing strategy, which is actually revolutionary, which is the big breakthrough from traditional marketing strategy. Because previously, traditional marketing is company, firm directed, firm initiated, firm control the whole process. Okay, has a tight control, and also the content is the same across different media. However, by utilizing influencer marketing, actually the firm is able to crowdsource the resources, right? The resources developed and possessed by numerous, influencers. Okay, so we identify 4 benefits of influencer marketing as well as 2 risks. Okay, the first benefit is targeting benefit. In the past, we need to do systematic segmentation, targeting, and positioning from the firm's point of view, okay, to understand the consumer markets. And now by selecting appropriate influencers, you basically crowdsource their follower network. For example, the influencer is an expert in cosmetics. Then you basically crowdsource her network of cosmetic lovers, fans, right? So this targeting can be more dynamic, up to date, and also more precise, put it that way, because followers can subscribe and also unsubscribe on a daily basis. So this is very up to date and also a precise way of targeting. Okay, the second benefit is positioning. What does positioning mean? Positioning means the positive associations that a brand brings in consumers' mind. Okay, the positive positionings. In the past, it is through firm-generated content. For example, when we think about Coca-Cola, it's very American, it's like happy, family, tradition, etc. And those elements are built up and accumulated over years of advertising and other communication strategies Coca-Cola has adopted. But now, by crowdsourcing the influencer's position, okay, you actually can build multidimensional brand associations in consumers' mind. And actually, it's also a positioning test marketing lab, because you can change. We interviewed some brands, for example, one ice cream brand. They utilize some influencers, and the positioning doesn't work well because they try to imbue a kind of Western association with their brand, and later they changed to like be more family-oriented, healthy, and trendy images. And how did they achieve that? Through crowdsourcing the influencers' positionings, because they can use different influencers who have similar, aligned positioning with the brand. The third benefit that we identify is creativity benefit, because basically, as I just mentioned, influencers are content creators. They build their fame by posting content. So they have their way of creating creative and novel content that are easily to be shared and noticed by their followers. In the past, firm would use like one advertising agency, and they will come up with some campaign and ideas, but that is very limited. Now by utilizing different influencers' perspectives, they may build like creativity. And as number boost like creativity, because the number of influencers you approach and utilize is much larger than one single advertising agency, it's more likely that creative content will appear. So this is a third benefit. And the fourth, but actually I think that's a very important benefit, is trust benefit. Because in the past, when firms do communication, they can do like outdoor advertising, they can do advertising, magazine, advertising on magazine, on TV, etc. But consumers know that it is from a firm. There's a commercial underlying motive. But for influencers, because they try to build an authentic image, even without endorsement, without a sponsorship from the firms. So they have a kind of grown up with the followers, and they have built very intimate and close relationship with the followers. And in the meantime, they also try to build a lot of interactivity. And nowadays they would organize a live stream. They would have Zoom meetings with their followers, to respond to followers' questions, comments, etc. So this kind of trust, this level of trust is not something firm can easily get. So by using influencers, they also crowdsource the trust benefit from influencers. Of course, there are also associated risks with any technique. One is customer retention. Based on our interview, actually, we identified that influencer marketing is more effective for acquiring customers, because you transfer the trust toward the influencer to trust toward the brand. But whether you are able to retain the customers or build their loyalties, it's up to a lot of brand factors like the quality, the service, customer retention programs, etc. The second is about content control risk. Content control risk. On one hand, you can utilize the creativity benefit of influencers, but on the other, some influencer creativity may not be so well aligned with the firm or the brand theme. So that also requires firms caution, careful management, and content control. So I have 20 more minutes. Let me move to another piece of work we've been doing. So the first work, we lay out the theoretical foundation of influencer marketing. We conceptualize it as a crowdsourcing strategy with both benefits, predominantly benefits, but also associated risks. The second stream of work, we look at some data. We want the data to tell us how effective firms' influencer marketing programs have been doing. Because in the first slide, I show you the rising expenses, right? The rising spending that firms dedicate to influencer marketing. Does it worth the money? Does it worth the money? Does influencer marketing spend lead to higher consumer engagement? So I use this graph to show you what I mean. The x-axis is a dollar. Okay, the dollar, that the spending, the investment that firms made to influence marketing. So they put money into it, right? What do they want? Okay, at least they want some likes, comments, or preferably like repost, right? To increase the brand awareness of the brand, of the product. So is this relationship positive? We want to determine, based on the data, we want to determine if this is positively significant. If it's non-significant, that means no matter how much you spend, it doesn't boost your the customer engagement, right? If it's very high, then that's good news that firms should devote more money into this technique. And secondly, okay, assuming this is positive, can firms enhance it? What can firms do? Okay, so the second question is, how can firms, sorry, the typo here, how can firms enhance its effectiveness? Basically the elasticity, right? Enhance the elasticity or the coefficient or the percentage of change in consumer engagement due to a 1% of change increase in influencer marketing spend. Okay, hope I've made myself clear. So to increase the coefficient, what can firms do? Are there any ways? Okay, so this is the framework we put together. Okay, the X, okay, X, the independent variable is influencer marketing spend. The dependent variable is engagement, consumer engagement that firms care about. Okay, in marketing research, I think also in other like a business research, we look at important dependent variables because that's something firms care, and that's something that we can derive managerial implications for firms. Okay, and on the left, the influencer marketing spend is firms like a strategy input. Okay, so the effect responds to the first question, whether it's worthwhile to invest in influencer marketing. And a number of moderators, as you can see the boxes, okay, respond to the second question, what can firms do? Okay, can they do something to enhance the elasticity of influencer marketing spend? Okay, we have three boxes. The first box is standard characteristic. What kind of influencers should you select? In the beginning, I mentioned about selection, influencer marketing. Influencer selection is very important. We identify three influencer characteristics. Their activity, okay, the frequency, basically the frequency of their content posting activity. Some post very frequently, some post like not moderately frequently, some post less frequently, right? So this is something firms can use to select influencer. Second, influencer originality. Some influencers are more like reposters. They repost, right? They repost content that is created by others. And some are more original. They create their own content. The third one, I think firms also use that as an indicator to select influencer a lot. That's firm size, follower size, the size of their follower network. So we identify these three. And the second box is about the recipient, okay, the follower characteristics. We focus on follower brand fit, We have data about the follower interest and also the brand category, okay? So nowadays, a lot of algorithm exists to push the post, push the information to followers that have exhibit similar like interest, okay, with this post or with this brand. Okay, so does it work? Okay, it is a good way, a wise way to enhance the influencer marketing effectiveness. The third box is about message post characteristics. So what kind of content, basically, what kind of content should the influencers like post or the desired by the brand? We look at post positivity. Okay, how positive the post is, sponsor salience, because in the post, the sponsor, the brand can be like hidden, okay, or made very prominent using some ad and hashtag, etc. And the third one is about the objective of this content, basically. Is it for new product launch or for promotion purposes, etc.? So as you can see in the bracket, there are some positive signs, some negative signs, some inverted U signs. They indicate our hypothesis, okay, whether it will increase, that's positive, increase the effectiveness or decrease the effectiveness. And most interestingly, whether it will have a non-linear moderating effect on this effectiveness of influencer marketing spend. Okay, so give you a brief idea of what our data looks like. The data pertains to 5,835 influencer marketing posts on Weibo, written by 2,412 online influencers related to 1,256 campaigns for 861 brands in October 2018. We are very fortunate to get access to this data because cost data, the X, the independent variable, oftentimes it's very sensitive, how much you have paid to this post, to this influencer. But yeah, we through some connections, we get access to that data. Okay, so this is the operationalization table of the variables, how we define and operationalize these variables. As you progress through our DBA program, you'll be very familiar with the style of doing research. And for our alumni, maybe you've already been very familiar with the type of research we've been doing. Okay, so what type of influencers are more effective? So first of course, I need to tell you the good news is that it's positive, okay? The coefficient between the effect of influencer spend on the consumer engagement operationalized as like a post or comment and like is positive. It's positive. So it is worthwhile to do influencer marketing. But more interestingly, we look at what type of influencers are more effective. We have a number of boxes, remember. So the first variable we look at is influencer activity. And we did find evidence for the nonlinear moderating effect, which means the moderate level of posting frequency, okay, is best to boost the effectiveness of influencer marketing spend, okay? So if you select influencer that is too frequently posting his or her content, that may not do you good, okay? Because the followers may be tired, they may filter their content, they may not pay attention to the influencers' posts. Secondly, we find the positive moderating role of influencer originality. It's true that the more original influencers are, the more valuable to the firm actually, because firms can capture more engagement, capture more reposts, likes, and comments from such influencers, okay, by spending money on them. Follower size, consistent with our intuition, right? Consistent, because when follower size is large, if you pay, maybe you'll find it's more expensive, right? It's more expensive to pay to incentivize a big influencer, okay? But the follower size he or she does increase the influencer marketing effectiveness. That is, $1 of increase in the spend will bring greater increase of engagement. Okay, actually, when you think about it, that's not that intuitive, because people might think that it may be more effective or more efficient to incentivize, to motivate a smaller influencers, because that's more affordable, right? And that influencer might bring more engagement as well. However, our data shows it. Indeed, the bigger influencer, they are more effective in bringing more engagement per dollar, okay? Follower brand fit. I think this is also a very interesting finding, because we are used to the big data algorithm, but actually we find that if the brand is too well fitted okay, too closely aligned with the followers. Because we have the follower interest data, we also have the brand category data. If they are too well fit, I think the consumer may have already been tired, been fed up with similar content. They do not respond so well compared with those only moderately fitting the brand characteristic or at a lower level. Okay, so it exerts a nonlinear fit. So the moderate fit will be better because it will give some surprise and that break through the similar content the consumer has already been consumed over time. Post positivity is another interesting variable because we thought like the brand always want the influencer to write something positive, right? To praise the brand, praise the product, but actually we find actually the moderate level, the balanced way of writing is more effective in terms of getting money back. Okay, so actually influencers should adopt a more objective, a more balanced, independent strategy when commenting on the brand or on the product. Okay, and the sponsor salience positive because consumers appreciate the honesty of the brand, the honesty of the influencer. Okay, new product launch, however, has a negative effect. That means for new product launch posts, okay, if the post is about a new product launch, maybe because the brand has already spent a lot on other like communication methods like TV, magazine, outdoor, etc. So the money spent on influencer marketing does not bring the best consumer engagement as compared with promotion-based posts. Okay, so that these three characteristics about post content characteristics. So because of the time constraint, let me quickly wrap up the research. What are the takeaways? Of course, there are a lot of statistical details, but I will just focus more on the takeaways and hope they are meaningful and interesting to you. First of all, increasing influencer marketing efforts or spend in terms of money paid can enhance consumer engagement. I think that's a good news for the brand who has been like spending money on it, for the influencer because they are actually making value for the firm. Okay. Second, firms can boost the effectiveness of their money spent by selecting bigger, more original, yet moderately active influencers and making the sponsorship more salient. Okay, so I think these are important implications for the firm. Bigger, more original, yet moderately like active. They shouldn't be talking too much, okay, every day, okay, and making the sponsorship more salient. Okay, firms may have overspent on promoting new versus existing products, resulting in suboptimal effectiveness. Okay, so that relates to our last result regarding the moderating role of new product launch. And moreover, firms should avoid overmatching with the audience. Matching might be good, might be effective, but too much matching is tiring. Okay, it's not effective. Big data algorithms have limits and sometimes can backfire. Okay, that's what our data told us. And lastly, I think that's also important for the firm as well as for the influencers. Firms should encourage influencers to provide independent, critical, and unique opinions, because our variable of post positivity is basically it's a ratio. Okay, the number of positive words divided by total number of words. Okay, so instead of positive words, there are also neutral words. There are also negative words. Okay, so the percentage of positive words out of total words is operationalized as post positivity. We used text analysis, okay, to calculate that variable and show that actually the moderate level of positivity is the best. And I think that also echoes the value of influencer marketing, why influencers are considered more authentic and influencer marketing are considered more effective, because it provides a honest, way of communication and also interacting with customers. So that's something we also confirm based on our data. Okay. And I think I'm almost done, and thank you all for your attention, and any questions are most welcome. We'll have a Q&A session after at the end of today's webinar. Okay, thank you. Lilian,
thanks for Dr. Flora Gu's giving us such excellent presentation and sharing. And if any audience has questions, please send me or FBRPSS, it is our administrator, a note, all right? And we are pleased to have our second speaker, Dr. Danny Poe. Actually, Professor Tong has already briefed Dr. Danny Poe's background, but I would like to add on, Dr. Danny Poe is also our honorary treasurer of PolyU DBA Alumni Association, and he is also an active speaker on taxation consideration of the Hong Kong and PLC Stock Connect. Dr. Danny Poe, please, your turn.
Thank you, Derek, and very pleased to talk to all of you on this topic. And also thank you for Dr. Gu's very interesting presentation. And in fact, Dr. Gu's sharing helped me a lot to make my life much more easy. And I picked this topic because I think it's very important, and also because all of us are experiencing a very difficult time in the past 2 years. And all of us think that, well, it's just really enough. And we all want to go back to the normal. Unfortunately, the actual situation is that we are not back to the normal. we are still in the very abnormal situation, and many people said that it is a new normal. So, well, requiring us to adapt to it rather than denying or pretending that all problems have gone. And to name a few, probably in your top agenda is the COVID-19. And recently we have the concern about its new variants, whether it will create the sixth wave to Hong Kong. And well, very close to us is the tension between China and the US. And I think it's not limited to the trade between these two giants. The tensions seems to be in many different aspects. And also the geopolitical tension nowadays in Europe and also in Asia. And also the inflation and the increase in the interest rate in the Western world, will it have any spillover effect to emerging countries like China and also the Asia Pac? So when I said it is a disruptive era, the dark side of which is probably well, a lot of dangers. So as the Chinese said, there's always when there is a danger, there's always an opportunity, and perhaps dangers and many opportunities. So probably we should look at the dark side, but also focus on the bright side, whether this disruptive era will give us new opportunities. So when I discuss M&A strategy, I'm not referring to the short-term speculation in the stock market, nor am I referring to acquiring a very powerful influencer. Okay, I'm talking about corporate M&A. And so I think for all M&A strategies, we are taking a long-term perspective to consider whether M&A will bring value to the acquiring and also the acquired corporate. And so I think because we take a long-term perspective, of course we need to respect there are currently short-term turbulence. Even for COVID, I think sooner or later it will become, well, as many people said, it's just a flu, a very serious flu. Of course, the medical practitioners have a very different view. It's not the same as a flu, but in any way, it will die down sooner or later. So it's a short-term turbulence. But would these kind of short-term turbulence have any long-term impact on the M&A strategy and also the business world? And if we are looking at the longer-term aspect, perhaps we have to think about the demographic factors. As Dr. Gu pointed out very correctly. For example, the COVID-19 helped boost the e-commerce, and the influencer play a very important role in the e-commerce. Perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't ever buy things online, but nowadays it becomes a habit. Okay. And to name a few, on this slide, I point out some key concern of the Gen Z and also the millennial. So this is our new generation. And I think just like the baby boomer post World War II, who shaped the business world, I think at present and also in the future, the business world is being shaped by this new generation, the Gen Z and millennial. And we also find that quite a few CEOs nowadays in big MNC, big conglomerate, they are the Gen Z and also the millennial, and they also articulate the M&A strategy. So I think it's important to look at what's the key concern of this new generation. And as Derek introduced me, I come from Deloitte, so I use a recent survey sponsored by Deloitte to try to shed some light on the key concern of these this new generation. On top, climate change. Okay. I think for M&A, we all look at profit-driven M&A. But they have a very different view in their daily life and also in the business world. And climate change is on top of their agenda. Next is the wealth inequality, and then geopolitical conflict, and also the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, of course, is affect our daily life. And in our survey, we find out that this new generation, they don't think the businesses and also the governments are doing enough to address this issue. And what's beyond core profit motive? They think that living a purpose is a credible response to all these concerns or questions. And perhaps some of us may experience here so-called the Great Resignation. I think in the U.S. market, they find that in the past 1 or 2 years, they lost quite a lot of jobs. It's not because of a very low unemployment rate. It's just because people just leave the job market. They don't want to go back to work. So nearly 2 in 5 respondents of that survey have turned down an assignment or role simply because it didn't align with their value. And even though the respondents, they are suffering very serious financial difficulties. So they have the anxiety to pay for their daily bill. However, they still not go back to the job market. And it's simply because the job itself is not interesting to them. It's not attractive because it didn't align with their value. And those who are satisfied with their employer, societal and environmental impact will more likely stay with their employer, and also in a longer term, rather than changing the employer or changing to another job, or even changing the industry. So, to create a diverse and inclusive culture of the employer will be very important in retaining the talent. So this is how the new generation react to the situation and also their agenda. And in my research, I focus on the M&A success. So it's very important to define or how to measure the success of any M&A transaction. Most of the time, people measure the success in two aspects. One is the short-term stock price reaction, and the next one is a longer term. We call it the post-event accounting performance. And the conventional belief for driving M&A for profit motive, okay, are as follows. First is the merger synergy. So people think that 1 + 1 must be greater than 2. But in the actual circumstance, we find that most of the M&A transaction didn't fulfill its promise. So 1 + 1 may not always be more than 2, and in the reverse, 1 + 1 most of the time is less than 2. And in this current business world, we find that the measure of a firm's performance may not be determined by its profit, either accounting profit or stock return. So if you look at those the new economy, okay, when you look at how they do the valuation, especially for those which haven't make profit, and some companies for those the new in the new economy, some high tech or in the new economy business, those firms haven't generated any revenue yet, but only have the usage. And so how would you be able to evaluate success when we are talking about M&A? Industry shocks is also another reason that drive M&A. For example, there is any regulatory development, new law and regulation, or there is any technology advancement. It will also drive M&A. And of course, market competition is another strong factor that drives M&A. How to face market competition. Eliminating your competitors or tries to absorb your competitor. So these are, this could be the main reason that drive or explain why people will be eager to do M&A. And one very interesting thing is for the acquiring firm, if it is experiencing overvaluation, it will be also another strong factor that will motivate the acquiring firm to go for M&A. And for this particular scenario, the acquiring firm will use its stock rather than cash to do acquisition. And last but not least is the CEO's self-interest and also envy. So I think recently there is a very hot topic whether Elon Musk will acquire Twitter. And if you look at Elon Musk, see what he said, what he told about Twitter is in fact very interesting. So do we think Elon Musk's main purpose of which is to have more profit, or he has a different agenda when considering Twitter. So in this disruptive era of the world economy, I think apart from those driving factors, we also need to consider how this issue would dictate or to shape the M&A activities. First one, of course, is the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I think apart from the biotech company, I think which generate a lot of profit during this COVID-19. Well, people start to think about the remote connectivities. So there's a very strong demand for this kind of technology. So to overcome the COVID-19 and also the social distancing, all this kind of knockdown, well, how did we overcome it? Now we have the Zoom meeting. So in the past, we always have the face-to-face physical seminar. But now we get used to online or virtual conference, and that help a lot. And people well will have a much stronger demand on the remote connectivities, how the business, how the M&A can be done in that way, and also dictate the selection of the target. Which particular kinds of firm that will be attractive in the M&A space. Decarbonization. Well, people are debating whether the decarbonization will help firms increase profits or is a cost to the firm. So I think well, as the new generations is very concerned about climate change, so decarbonization will also be an interesting topic. And well, reshuffling of the global supply chain. Well, people said that we should not be too reliant over one or two well, sourcing of what we need, and so the diversification of the global supply chains will also be very important. But think about why we have the globalization. So we have the globalization because we use comparative advantage to determine the global supply chain. So we pick the country which has the best comparative advantage, and then we segregate the whole supply chain into pieces, and we put a particular piece in a particular country which has the best comparative advantage. So it's a segregation of duty among countries in the world. But now, when we said that, we cannot rely on the supply of a particular country, we look for diversification. So is this another round of globalization, or would it be a deglobalization? So putting all the things. So well, get the supply chain, the whole supply chain, back to my home country as to secure the supply. So would it be going into this particular trend? So it's very important things that we need to observe. Of course, the geopolitical tension, national security. So I think 10 years ago, national security was not any factor that needs to be put into consideration in M&A transaction. But nowadays, it's totally a different story. So national security becomes one of the very fundamental factor that we need to consider in each and every M&A transaction. De-dollarization, so is US dollar still a reliable currency? So factor into the national security, geopolitical tension. So can we still rely on US dollar to carry out M&A transactions? I think if you look at different survey in the past 10 or 20 years, US dollar has always been the most common currency for deal price payment. Well, people right now would have to rethink about it. Okay, so are we now going into an inflation, or is a stagflation? So I think the economists will have a big debate over it. So shall we increase the interest rate to suppress the inflation? Or the increase in the interest rate will create stagflation? So for M&A transaction, based on previous research, we find that M&A transaction flourish at the time when there is in fact inflation, and sometimes inflations equate growth in the economy. So people in the growth stage will have a stronger incentive to go for M&A transaction. But in a stagflation situation, people will think it twice and be much more cautious in considering M&A transaction. And then finally, I want to point out is the metaverse. I think the metaverse is a paradigm shift. So it's not just an entertainment. Initially, I think people would just think that, well, metaverse is just something the new generation would like to play on. But in fact, people have started to think about the business application in the metaverse. And apart from the business, it will also have an impact in the industry. So I recently attended another seminar which described metaverse. So it will be a change, so I think it's fair to describe it as a paradigm shift rather than simply a new technology. Okay. So I think there will be multi-facets impact on M&A strategy because of this disruptive era. Well, of course, ESG is a very important consideration in every agenda, including M&A strategy. And what Elon Musk told us about Twitter, I think this is something we can learn from, and that also witness the behavior of the new generation. And also the diversification in the supply chain, would it override the comparative advantage? So, well, I think in the past the formula is just much more straightforward than the current situation. So as I just mentioned, well, we just pick the best competitive advantage country and put that piece of supply chain in that country, then well, a problem solved. But now we need to think about the geopolitical tension. We need to think about the diversification in the supply chain. So that will also affect the M&A strategy. And there are, in fact, numerous research related to M&A in the past, saying that industry relatedness is an important factor in determining the success of M&A. So what does it mean? People find that, the researcher find that if the acquiring and the acquired firms are in the same industry, then there is a higher likelihood the merger synergy will crystallize post M&A transaction. And there are quite a few theories that can explain this phenomenon. But if we are now saying that because we want to secure the supply of, say, natural resources or the supply of raw material, if I am a manufacturer, then probably in the diversification of the supply chain, I would have to consider a vertical integration. So buying an upstream or the downstream business in my supply chain. So the industry relatedness will be weakened. So would it pose more challenge in the success of the M&A transaction? So finally, national security. So my question is whether it is a deal killer or a deal maker. And I think, well, well, people said that it depends. Depends on which target and also the identity of the acquirer. And because of national security, some country may just deny or reject any cross-border M&A acquisition. And however, if we are talking about the new normal, the reshuffling of the supply chain, and the national security may also drive another wave of M&A. So we move from this country to another country, and M&A could be the fastest track for entering into any particular new market. So I think the M&A to a certain extent could be a deal killer, but in some other situation could be a deal maker. Okay, so I list out quite a few factors that we need to consider in any M&A strategy. Of course, target selection is very important, and it depends very much on the firm's business strategy. And then valuation, as I said, well, that would also have a very different view when we are talking about this disruptive era, and also the form of payment. And according to, well, normally there are two choices. One is to pay M&A in cash, and another form of payment is by stock. So I can use my company's stock as the consideration to pay for M&A. So it's a share for share transaction. So most of the time we are talking about the two choices, either in cash or in stock, or sometimes it is a mix. So partly in cash and partly in stock. And based on many research, people find that if the acquiring firm believes that its stock is overvalued, when the stock is overpriced, then it will tend to use stock as the consideration to pay for the M&A. Okay, and the reason behind, of course, because well, we've got the if it is overpriced, then which means it is more competitive in the M&A market. And of course, if it is underpriced, then people tend to use cash to pay for the M&A. So if you look at an acquiring firm, if you look at a CEO, in which form well, he is going to pay for the M&A, then probably it will give you some insight of his view over the pricing of his own stock and also the future prospect. And recently, because of all these uncertainty, well, people have started to think about the M&A insurance. M&A insurance is very typical in Europe and also in the US, but quite uncommon in Asia Pac. But in my observation and in recent 1 or 2 years, I find that acquirer in Asia Pac have started to consider very seriously buying M&A insurance. And finally, is the exit route. When cash is king, then it is in fact very difficult to use IPO as an exit. People tend to be very cautious making investment. That will also affect the M&A strategy. So as an M&A practitioner, we always think about the exit route ahead of any M&A transaction. Okay, so my concluding remarks. Well, I don't think I have a crystal ball to tell you what will happen in the future. But I attempt to point out, well, what has been happening could be very obvious to all of you. What has been happening now, and what will have a longer term impact in the future as far as M&A is concerned. And in fact, I'm not trying to give you a very definitive advice how to articulate your M&A strategy, but I have an aim to try to identify those very important factors that we need to consider. So I think as far as M&A is concerned, I think it is not just a yes or no answer, whether we should go for an M&A or not to go for an M&A, but it's more a question of how to articulate an M&A strategy well, during this difficult moment and also the new normal. And the tips that I can share with you is the agility. So I think the agility is the key. So be flexible, be adaptive, well, to adhere to the trend. I think that will also be very important to ensure success in any M&A strategy. So that's all I have. So well, back to Derek.
Thanks. Thanks for Dr. Danny Po's sharing. Again, if any audience has questions, please send me or our administrator, FBRPSS, a note. All right. Thanks for all our distinguished speakers who gave us such excellent sharing. It is time to open the floor to questions. All right. Let me take a look to questions. Some have already raised by audience. All right, let me see. The first one question to Dr. Flora Gu. Okay, inferences are supposed to provide independent opinions. All right. However, as you mentioned, it poses content control risk for the firm. How to reconcile the tension? Well, Dr. Flora Gu, your turn, please.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think it's an interesting question. Indeed, the empirical analysis shows us that the influence should not just provide a one-sided positive information on their post, on their sponsored post, because in doing so, actually it violates the kind of authenticity rule in this social media community, and also it will not be beneficial for the firm's consumer engagement goal. That's why we would advise that the firms still give sufficient autonomy to the influencers to write up their comment in a creative, independent way. But to deal with this content control risk, I think even that the firms provide insufficient room for the influencers' creativity, they should still provide the brief, okay, the content brief to the influencers. For example, what are the objectives of this post, and what are the core brand elements? Okay, what are the core product features that should be integrated in the content? Provide like giving autonomy to the influencer to leverage their creativity doesn't mean that the firm should have no intervention, no management in this process. So they still should have some flexibility and should have some balanced control. Yeah, at least I think the influencer should get permission from the brand or company before publicizing, right? Before posting their content on social media platforms to avoid any possible negative consequences. Okay, thank you for the question.
Thank you. Well, there's another question which is hot topic. talking about the dollarization question to Dr. Danny Po. The question is, all right, what is a better substitute for US dollar in terms of deal price payment?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And in fact, I haven't seen any strong substitute for US dollar. I don't think I can say that there's no better substitute, but I haven't seen a very strong substitute or common substitute for US dollar. So, well, based on my personal experience in the past 1 or 2 years in M&A transaction, I still find that US dollar is the major currency to complete an M&A transaction. People have started to consider, well, whether we can use well, cryptocurrency as a substitute. But I think we have to wait for the central bank back cryptocurrency before this is a viable option or substitute for US dollar. And as I also mentioned, when the acquiring firm's own stock is overpriced, then people will start to use stock as the payment method. But again, I haven't find too many share for share or stock for stock M&A transaction in recent year. But I think there could be a trend that people will start to think about using stock. Because well, think about it. If you use your stock as the payment, well, for the shareholder of the acquired firm, which means it is a collaboration. So it's a cross shareholding between the two firms, and I think in this current situation, especially the globalization, collaboration is in fact very important in ensuring the success of any particular business. So I would expect or anticipate that well, stock payment will become more common.
Okay, thanks for Danny's Dr. Danny Po's reply. I got an important question raised by our important person, all right, Professor Wilson Tong, our program director. Pass to you, please.
Thanks, Derek. You somehow make a mistake. You put too important. It's unimportant, actually. Again, I thank Professor Flora Gu and Dr. Danny Po for very insightful and interesting discussions on different topics. And I have a personal question, not personal, I mean, I have a question for Professor Flora Gu. And I believe that's an example, right? So in case you're joining a program and then our study, then typically we'll have a lot of discussion in class. And even for our regular faculty members, then we have seminars talk about their research results and then their working papers, and then we typically attend and then raise questions. And we always welcome, as my example here, some stupid question, right? So I'm not familiar with marketing, but I think it's very interesting. So allow me to ask some simple question, or may not sensible. The only thing I learned about marketing and advertising in a very young age when I studied high school economics, and it was very old, right? So, but the author is very famous. He's Professor Edward Cheng. Right? At that time, he wrote a high school textbook on economics. And that's the only thing I learned about marketing. He mentioned about marketing as two major types. I believe it's very old days, and nowadays I don't know whether it's still applicable or not. So one is called informative marketing. The other is called persuasive marketing. My understanding is, well, if you do advertising or marketing, one way is to let your potential customers to know your product or service, the quality, whatever. So it's provide information. So this kind of informative type of marketing, right? So the other is a bit different. It's not about the quality, but just try to persuade you that, oh, I have a very, very good product for you, right? So I believe, let's say, soft drink is more of a persuasive. I don't think Coca-Cola is fundamentally of higher quality than other soft drinks, but somehow you like it, right? So back to Flora Gu's research, nowadays talking about influence and marketing, right? So is there any study that this type of influencer actually is, as the name says, influencing in a sense, I just persuade my followers that all this product is good or not, or what? And instead of really giving information that, well, you want to know more about this, I have used this, I think it's very good. So kind of like this. And I wonder if there is a study on this. And why I'm asking is from a finance perspective, right? So in terms of investment, right? So you're talking about also we worry about information. So some information, we call it real information. The other is just noise. And the way we are dealing with this is, if, let's say, I hear somebody saying something, if this is real information, that will move the price. If positive, the price will go up. If negative, the price goes down. And then it will stay there permanently. But if it's a noise, so it's more of a psychology, whatever, then it's just a blip. And then it will revert back. So another follow-up question is there a study that this kind of influencer marketing is a permanent impact or just a temporary kind of a psychological effect? So please follow.
Thank you, Professor Tong. In fact, these are very deep and profound questions. They are not shallow or simple at all. First of all, let me talk about, I think, the influencers post. And we should know that there are different types of posts. Some are sponsored, like what I discussed in our data. It's sponsored posts. So in those posts, a certain company, okay, pays the influencer to write something about the brand or about the product. So I think fundamentally the objective is to persuade. So it's part of persuasive marketing. But there are also, I think, if not more, okay, posts that are non-sponsored. So being an influencer, you do not always collect jobs and do sponsored posts. You also like share your daily life, like build a rapport with your followers by like disclosing your personal stories, etc. So those are the non-sponsored posts. And some of those influencers, they build their expertise, right? They have a fame and they're experts on something. Okay, they provide a lot of information. And that's why the followers would go to their posts to look for information. And supposedly those information should be high level and objective information. That's why they survive in this competitive market. So I think there are both like a persuasive part, okay, in their content, and also non-persuasive, more purely informative, or sometimes it can be relational part of their information, right? The information is not just to inform, but to like build relationship with their followers, build trust. Okay, so there are different nature, I think. They are of different nature. The other question I think very interesting, whether the effect is long-term or short-term, or it's just psychological or something more tangible. First of all, this particular research project, we do not have data for long-term effect. But interestingly, I had another project looking at the live streaming. Okay, you know, nowadays in Douyin, those influencers, they organize hours-long live streaming sessions to sell products, and we link this information with the next day stock price change. And the data is still, the analysis is still ongoing, but some initial evidence shows some negative sign, some negative correlation. And it's not just—
What do you mean by negative sign? Negative correlation?
Mean that if you have hired an influencer to do live streaming, like selling tonight and tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, actually stock market will drop. That's our initial finding. We try to figure out why, because previously our idea is that, it will help boost sales. It indeed boosts sales because all the live streaming session would result in some sales, right? They would provide links and the follower can click links and to get access to their website to buy the things. But despite this sales effect, the stock market actually reaction is not that good. It's actually negative. And we want to understand why. Probably because I think the analysts think if firms utilize a live streaming session as a way to sell products, it's quite short-term oriented. They're not focusing on building brand. They are focusing more on the product selling, which is not so good for the firm's long-term competitiveness. Maybe we're still trying to figure out why, but the evidence shows that the effect may not be that long-lasting. This is only one type of influencer marketing because live streaming is only one type. For the conceptual paper I briefly presented, we also recognize that it has limits. For example, it may help you acquire customers, right? New customers, but how long can you retain the customers is another question. Brands need to take over. They cannot always rely on influencers to build the brand, image, brand equity, but instead, once they acquire new customers from influencers, they should have their own firm, well-structured loyalty programs, quality control, etc., to sustain the pool of the customers. So I think there's still research needed to investigate the long-term effect of influencer marketing. But very excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. So I just want to influence the audience that academic research is indeed meaningful and interesting, right? You have a lot of questions, and sometimes you got some surprising results. You say the market reaction is negative, indeed is surprising. But that is really a good angle to really go deep into, say, hey, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So excellent. Thanks for very good. So Derek,
yeah.
Do we have time?
We're running out of time,
okay.
So no alternative. I can only pick one more question, and I have to apologize for the rest of the participants who raised other questions. All right, I picked this question to Dr. Danny Poh. Have you seen a trend of declining volume of cross-border M&A transaction, if not disappear overnight? Dr. Danny Poh?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Chung, and also this is a very good question. I think people will think that, well, because the market situation is so difficult in the past 2 or 3 years, how would people consider doing M&A? So for such a difficult job, and for any M&A is not always easy. And then if we have all these travel restriction, we cannot meet people in person, talk to people face to face. How will we be able to go for or complete any M&A transaction? So I think this is a very valid question. People may think about, well, we won't have M&A in the market, at least in the past 1 or 2 years. But as Professor Tong mentioned, for any particular research, it will give us a very surprising result. And in fact, it's also a very surprising result that Deloitte recently conduct, and we find that in the past 2 years, the number of M&A transactions are increasing, and it's a double-digit increase in the number of M&A transactions.
You mean cross-border M&A or what?
Cross-border M&A.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Double-digit growth in terms of number, counting 1, 2, 3.
What about dollar volume?
Dollar volume is decreasing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so on average, the deal size is reducing, while the number of transactions is increasing. So what's the reason behind? So people still consider that M&A is a very strong, very powerful tool in entertaining, in addressing business challenges, okay? Either for growth or for survival. So M&A is still a very important tool. However, if you look at the size, when the average size of M&A is reducing, it indicates that people become very cautious, especially in pricing. So the valuation itself is the key challenge. Okay. So I echo with Professor Tong's suggestion for any academic research and putting in the business context, always give people very interesting, very surprising result.
May I add a footnote here? Actually, I have currently had a DBA student doing a topic on the impact of economic policy uncertainty on the M&A using China setting. Why? Because there's a renowned econ paper talk about economic policy uncertainty starting on US and then globally. So that is indeed the case that fit nicely in your situation. And nowadays we have so many uncertainties facing us, right? So how would that kind of impact on a particular area that is M&A, right? So that is very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to the result.
Right. Okay.
Me too.
Yeah. Good.
Me too. All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. We are close to the end of today's event. I would like to remind that our coming Scholar Leader webinars under the theme of strategic foresight in an age of disruptions are latest development of supply chain and renminbi internationalization and Hong Kong's role, tentatively to be held in July. We will invite distinguished speakers from academic and also alumni to share their insight. Stay tuned to our announcement. And taking this opportunity, I would like to remind that this event is organized by the Doctor of Business Administration of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Co-organizer is the PolyU DBA Alumni Association Limited. Supporting organization, the Hong Kong Independent Non-Executive Director Association, Hong Kong NED, ACCA, CFA Society, CTA, Chartered Tax Advisor, and Taxation Institute of Hong Kong. If you want to know, understand more about DBA program, you can visit our website. And I would like to close my remarks and officially announce the end of today's event, Strategic Foresight in an Age of Disruption, Business Strategies in Post-COVID Disruption. All right, thanks for your time and participation today. Hope to see you in our coming webinar very soon. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you, Dr. Gu. Thank you, Dr. Danny Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.